Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I'm Sandy Huang, reporter for China's state broadcaster CGTN. As our world becomes more interconnected, investments in digital transformation and sustainable technology isn't just an important driver for economic growth, but also a powerful catalyst for social change. And this is especially important as APEC economies are facing persistent challenges like inflation, economic disparities, and protectionism. So this panel, we're hoping to discuss how, with targeted investments, we could create more opportunities despite these challenges and drive innovation, drive sustainability, and make sure that everyone benefits from it. So let's dive in. So I'd like to start with a big picture question. What do you guys see as the next big investment opportunity that will have transformative impact in your industry? And before that, could you also give us a little background of your fields? Let me just start with you, Bernardo. You're sitting right next to me.
Well, first of all, thank you very much to the CEO Summit for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. I am in very physical businesses like pulp production, paper production, energy production. But and to answer your question, so I'm in the region in Latin America, that's where we are in. But to answer your question about what are the big investment opportunities in digital technologies, I would take the perspective of the intersection between physical and digital. And what I see there is basically a huge opportunity, especially for our region and for countries like Chile and Peru, around the enormous demand for new capacity and modernization of data centers. So if you think about data centers, there are some numbers around that the International Agency of Energy has put together. In the year 2026, 800 terawatt-hour of electricity consumption will be demanded by data centers, which equates to around 6 times the total consumption of, let's say, Chile and Peru of electricity. So it's a very big opportunity, and countries that have been blessed basically by natural resources like wind and solar, vast amount of unoccupied land. Obviously, it's a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity that would create social and economic impact. And what we need to really take this opportunity is to adding to these natural resources we have. We also have, I think, entrepreneurship capacity in our countries, but you have to add to that basically the institutional and the regulatory framework to provide certainty to investors to come to Latin America and to install their data centers, and so as to, from there, to supply the requirements of cloud computing, of IA, or of blockchain application all around the world. So data centers could be located in any part of the world and can supply, their services to the rest of the world. So why not transforming Chile and Peru a kind of ecosystem to develop this new technology? We have good renewable energy, we have competitive energy. There's always challenges around the transmission network, which is also a difficulty. But data centers are the main bottleneck of data centers nowadays is precisely the availability of renewable power. And it's not rare that companies like Google, like Microsoft, like all the big ones are entering to global power purchase agreements with global energy companies with a mandate to find for locations where you have renewable energy and many other resources that are required around building data centers. So that's, I would say, is a big investment opportunity around the technology that is at the same time a very good opportunity for our countries.
And Martin, I believe you run the company that's the world's largest provider of IT infrastructures. What about you? What do you see as the next big investment opportunities?
Yeah, thank you, and it is a pleasure to be here as well. So thank you for that. Kyndryl, for those who are not familiar with the name, is the world's largest technology services provider. So we design, build, and manage the technology infrastructure that runs the things that we all count on every day: the banking systems, the airline systems, and the airports, the supply chains, chemical companies. So we run that infrastructure. And what our customers tell us with regard to investments is really two things. One, for any problem, any challenge that they have, retaining employees, attracting employees, skilling employees, finding new customers, understanding existing customers, growing faster, innovating more, for whatever that challenge is, technology is a big part of that answer. And so that's exciting for a tech services company. And they also tell us that 90% or so feel as though their technology infrastructure today is world class. Also good news. However, fewer than 40% in our surveys feel that their infrastructure is ready for the opportunities or the challenges of the future. Opportunities in the form of AI and other technologies that are coming, as an example, or challenges in the form of cybersecurity and resilience, or in the form of new policies, new regulations. So the next phase of investment, if the thing that can solve or address a vast majority of your problems is not ready, then the next phase of investment for our customers is their technology infrastructure.
And you mentioned technology infrastructure, and data centers has been talked about a lot as well. I believe that's something that Indonesia is focusing on as well, being the largest digital economy in Southeast Asia. What can you add to this?
First of all, I think Indonesia should have an exciting journey in the next 25 years. The president just recently inaugurated, President Prabowo, who's going to be on stage in, let's say, half an hour, is trying to push the economy from growing 5% in the last 25 years, which make the economy growing 5x in the last 25 years, to 8%, right? Now, in order to go from 5 to 8%, we have to go beyond domestic consumption and also government spending, despite how efficient it is. And we believe those things are about FDI investments, export, as well as transformative industries. And the two come to mind for Indonesia is the digital industry, as well as the green industrialization. So when we talk about digital infrastructure, it is certainly a very important and fundamental for Indonesia, because this country of 280 million people, they are spread in 17,000 islands, right? Of course, it's a bit misnomer because we have 5 big islands like Java, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, and Sumatra, and Papua, right? So for Indonesia to get to the level of 8%, the digital infrastructure has to be there. And personally, I'm focusing also in our business capacity in the green industrialization, because below the ground, Indonesia is blessed with critical minerals, not only the fossil fuel, but also the copper, nickel, zinc. They are top 5 in the world in terms of the resource. So you can imagine if we can process those critical minerals with the renewable energy potentials above the ground, being in the equator. We have geothermal, hydro, solar, wind, by also protecting and one day capitalizing the biodiversity around us. I think that's going to be powerful for the economy. And I would like to also add that Indonesia is the 16th largest economy in the world, about $1.3 trillion in terms of size. Having said that, when you divide with 280 million people, the GDP per capita is still $5,000 per capita. So we still have a lot of room to grow, and we want to grow. So any initiative in Indonesia that will be supported by the administration and also by the consumers will be economic initiatives that will help, number one, resilience in food security, energy security, water security. For example, with the new plan for free healthy meal in all the school system of Indonesia, we need, for example, 80 million more eggs every day. Right, we need 8 million more chicken every day. So these type of things will create, industrializations in agriculture, right? So this is one of the things that can move. And then, of course, we want the growth to be inclusive. Remember, even in chambers of commerce in an industry in which I'm representing, it has 38 provinces and 600 counties representing these chambers of commerce and industries, and they also want to grow in their welfare. So I think the beauty that I see about Indonesia is how to grow not only 5%, 8%, but also alleviating poverty and also bring welfare and reducing the Gini ratio at the same time.
Thank you. With all those numbers, the numbers about the chickens and the eggs, yeah, it makes me a little hungry now. But Bonnie, being in Hong Kong, obviously a very, very interesting and important jurisdiction, what we call a super connector between the Chinese mainland and the rest of the world for companies that are listed on your platform. In terms of the big picture question, where do you think the next wave of investments should go?
Okay. Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me. As you said, we sit in Hong Kong and we pride ourselves as the super connector. Now, one way you describe, as to how we look at this connecting is, Hong Kong connecting mainland China with the rest of the world. But as one of the largest exchange or stock exchange in the world, what we also connect is actually capital with opportunities. And therefore, actually going back to your question, it doesn't really matter. And I tend not to dispense any investment advice. My corporate communications team said I should never do it, so I'll not do it in this occasion. But suffice to say that it doesn't matter whether you're in forestry, pulp and paper, you're in technology services, or chicken and egg. You need money to do it. But for the purpose of this discussion, perhaps we should focus on technology. And I'll run some numbers, just to put things into context as to how much money is needed. So AI, for example, artificial intelligence, I've done some research. So global spending on AI in 2024 is expected to reach $235 billion US, and it will triple at over in the next few years, so that it will reach $630 billion by 2028. This is AI. The other thing which, actually Martin and I discussed earlier, cloud technology. So global public cloud spending is expected to grow to about US $2.5 trillion by 2025. Another aspect of technology that we tend to talk a lot about is data. It's really proliferating in a lot of aspects. And I would say it will be one area where we are going to see a lot of growth. So why am I sort of cantering through these numbers? I think it's really to drive home the point about the purpose of an exchange. It is really to allow companies which are, embarking on their journeys in these areas to raise the capital so that they can fund the growth of their company, and also to allow investors who want to treasure hunt among these very interesting investment opportunities. They can take their pick as to what they see as the fastest growing and the most promising sector. And at the end of the day, when we look at the business of running an exchange, it's really a financial market infrastructure that we're running. We support fundraising, we support trading activities by investors. So long way to answer your question, but I want to cover it all. I don't need to pick winners.
And we can go further into the innovative reforms that your platforms have taken in recent years to allow more fundraising for these companies and making Hong Kong Exchange a globally competitive platform. And since we are sort of on the topic of China, I wondered if Bernardo has anything to add. I know that your company has big businesses in this market in China.
Well, of course, yes, you're right. Most of the countries of South America, one of the largest trading partners is China. In our case, as I said before, we are in pulp and paper production and energy generation. Most of our, not most of it, but the largest trading partner of Chile in pulp is China. So obviously, on the other way around, in energy, a lot of the equipment that we use to build and solar photovoltaic plants or wind farms or storage, well, one of the largest providers of those equipment are Chinese companies. So we have good reasons to be good partners, to collaborate in fair terms, of course. And so yes, it's a very strong relationship.
And Martin, I believe what you described as the IT infrastructures are, what we call mission critical systems that are, as you said, used in systems like airports, ATMs, or hospitals. Just a quick follow-up. I mean, we all saw the so-called blue screens of death during the CrowdStrike meltdown earlier this year. What does it take to build systems so secure that big outages like that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I'm not sure we can build things so secure that those outages won't happen. We run, Kyndryl runs a global delivery platform. We have obviously a leader for that global delivery platform, and I can tell you, at least in my job, if that global delivery platform is calling you at 4:20 in the morning New York time, that's usually the start of a bad day. And it was a start of a bad day for the CrowdStrike incident. The relentless challenges of cybersecurity are not going away. They're not going away. And the relentless changes and updates and evolution of the regulatory environments that are really important. Regulation around cybersecurity and cyber resiliency are very, very important. They're not going to be loosened or be diminished in any way, shape, or form. Every country needs a banking system. Every country needs a supply chain that works. So the world is not getting less dangerous. The world, to keep up with the world, is not getting less complex. And so while keeping the bad guys out is always top of mind for everyone, in every interaction we have with our customers, we surveyed our customer set and a broader customer set globally within the past few months and produced something that we call the Kyndryl Readiness Report. I would encourage you to have a look at some interesting insights. But the number one risk that everyone's worried about, 64% are worried about, is cybersecurity and resiliency. So it is top of mind. It is absolutely top of mind. And keeping the bad guys out, not really that likely. However, there are, we should all be trying. We should make sure we're isolating the attacks. We should make sure we can contain it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the existential risk to firms is the resiliency features that you have. How quickly can you come back online? So for us, and what we do for our customers, CrowdStrike incident was interesting. Again, that's not even the bad guys, they're the good guys. But CrowdStrike was interesting because the way we run, we knew instantly all 45,000 servers across the globe that had been impacted, which means we could begin a discussion with our customer base about what those servers do, how important are they to mission critical, what order do you want me to bring them back up. Now, in the case of CrowdStrike, there was no automated way to do it. Nobody had an automated way to bring it up. You had to turn a machine off, bring it up in safe mode, turn it back off, and reboot it again. But at least with having to get through 45,000, we could prioritize them because we had observability. And that allowed us to get everybody back online. Mission critical were back up within 6 hours, and everybody was back up for the weekend. So for us, I think for everybody, yes, security is top of mind. You're not going to keep all the bad guys out forever. So focus on resilience, and the focus on resilience has to start with observability.
And if you would indulge me, another question about China, because China is very much a digital society now. Nobody uses cash anymore. Does that make us vulnerable to mission critical systems failing, or?
I don't know that it makes it vulnerable. It just puts increased pressure on making sure that those systems work all the time. I mean, the world works on the SWIFT banking system. The world works on payment systems. that have evolved over time, and they're pretty, I mean, they're really good, right? They're really good. We can and we should be trusting the systems to work, but that doesn't mean that the bad guys aren't accelerating. That doesn't mean that the bad guys aren't getting more organized. That doesn't mean that the bad guys aren't sharing data the way the good guys should be sharing data. In fact, I would argue the bad guys share data better than the good guys do. So we as a society need to keep reinforcing these systems. We as a society need to create things that can reach all areas of the population, but at the same time recognize that when you create a super low-cost platform that everyone can use, then you also have to educate all those people, because the bad guys are going to go where the money is. And so it's a bigger effort. The platforms can be safe, the platforms can be secured, the platforms can be resilient. The users need to be a part of this. They need to be educated. They need to have some skills and some awareness of what's going on. The number one, I think everybody probably knows the statistic, the number one cause of cyber issues is still human error. Somebody clicked on something they shouldn't have, by far. So it's awareness, but the platforms work.
Thank you. And speaking of good versus bad and resilience, Anand, I wondered if you could comment on the fact that the areas that you are invested in, sustainability, from EVs to solar panels to even prefab housing, these are very much subject to geopolitical tensions and tariffs. How do you navigate these so-called tripwires?
First of all, maybe I focus on the why we're investing in those areas. Mentioned about EV, renewable energy, and 3D printing for housing. First of all, we are a group of 82-year experience, mostly in energy, infrastructure, as well as digital and media. So we think for us to be at 100 and sustainable going forward in terms of growth and also the connectivity with the environment, we need to think a little bit differently, but at the same time making sure that the growth will still be there. Right? Now, EV makes sense for us because Indonesia needs a lot of electric buses and trucks, and that's what we want to focus, heavy mobility, because, for example, Indonesia needs 200,000 buses on the road, about 5 million trucks, whether it is in the plantations, on the road, and so forth. And Indonesia has the largest nickel reserve in the world. So one day, not that you want to invent the technology for battery, but you can work on processing nickel to become battery materials, right? But in the meantime, you have those market size to fulfill your production capacity, and we do build our production locally in Indonesia. Of course, with a partner that is known, for example, BYD is our partner for the buses. And number two, when it comes to renewable energy, I think we touched upon a little bit about how Indonesia has huge potential for renewable energy. Let me just give you some size. We believe that in order for Indonesia to achieve the target by 2045, the 5x, we need to grow at least from 70 gigawatt to about 250 gigawatt. And the government of Indonesia has a plan to make sure that 75% of that increase is coming from renewable energy. So for us to focus on that by way of doing net zero industrial park to start with, so it's almost like a special economic zone, but focusing on how the energy is being used. I think that's one thing that's exciting for us. And for 3D printing, at the end of the day, we will work with mostly small, medium enterprises because the government really wants to make sure that low-income housing, about 3 million houses a year, which Indonesia currently has backlog of 10 million, is a good opportunity. But we are also cognizant that a lot of these numbers are meant for low-income housing and also small, medium enterprises. But those are the reasons why we invest in the technology.
Thank you. And so the China-US sort of, I guess, tussle in terms of tariffs on EVs and sustainability. Does that factor into discussions on, of investments in Indonesia at all? I mean, I know Indonesia and China are working together on building the EV supply chain. Is that, does tariff come into the discussions?
Sure. No, I think it's a very good question. I think Indonesia and Southeast Asia has been net beneficiary of these trade tensions, in this case between the US and China. And let me be clear, trade tensions in the long run is not good. It's not good. But with China Plus One strategy, Indonesia has been able to kind of like navigate these waters, along with a couple of other Southeast Asian countries, because a lot of relocation or reshoring of the capacity from China by Chinese companies and also by even American companies, right? So that one has been all right for us currently. And right now, if we look at the trade with the US, for example, Indonesia is doing good. The trade is increasing, but starting from lower base. So I think Indonesia's relationship in the next administration, from what we have seen in 2016, 2020, will only increase. Because after all, Indonesia is a land of opportunity as well in terms of the human resource. And imagine the US with all this, whatever they call it later on, Inflation Reduction Act, they need to invest a lot in the green technology, and a lot of these critical minerals have a lot to do with the success of it. And lastly, I think this tension will essentially create two parallel tracks of technology in the case of digitalization as well as again the green industrialization, and those things are quite advantageous for a country like us that not yet invent our own technology indigenously, but we can implement it as application for those technology.
And building on your point about navigating relationships with the U.S., Bonnie, I know that a lot of the companies that are already listed in the U.S. are now, having a secondary listing in Hong Kong. Could you give us more context on some of the initiatives that your platform is having for, to navigate this interesting environment?
Sure. So first of all, what you mentioned, the fact that a lot of companies, mainland Chinese companies, which have already, listed elsewhere, say for example on Nasdaq or NYSE, decided to come to Hong Kong for a second listing, is for a very specific purpose. And that relates to the fact that we have something very attractive to offer, something called the Stock Connect program. Now, what the Stock Connect program does is to allow companies which are listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange to have access to the massive numbers of investors on mainland China. We're the only exchange in the world, which offers that. No other exchanges can do it. And if you think about the mainland China, because of the very rapid growth of the middle class with a lot of money that is seeking investment opportunities, you could imagine what that can do, in terms of companies listed on our exchange, the liquidity and the valuation, right? This what we call southbound investment is certainly going to be very, very attractive. And that is really the key reason why these companies have come to look for a second listing in Hong Kong, exactly to achieve that. Now, obviously, you're alluding to geopolitics. That has a part to play because, we dial the clock back a couple of years ago, there were certainly a lot of perceived risk by these companies that they may be subject to sanctions by the US government or even threatened to be delisted on the exchange. But I think we've moved on from there. And so now it is more, because of what I just mentioned, the attraction of attracting investors from the mainland to buy the stocks of those companies. Now, these companies, a lot of them are actually in the technology sector. quite a number of them are in a very rapid growth phase, and as a result, a lot of these companies are still not profit-making. In fact, I would say for the biotechnology companies, they're not even revenue-generating for now. So in order to accommodate, the profile of these companies and enable them to be listed on our exchange, what we've done over the last few years were to come up with very bespoke listing chapters, listing framework, so that we really can tailor-made a set of environment and conditions for them, so that they can they will be in a position to tap the public market a little earlier than before. And so far, we've done quite well. So to give you an example, in 2018, we put in place a new listing chapter targeting pre-revenue biotechnology company. That was a smashing success. In only a matter of 3 or 4 years, Hong Kong became the second largest capital raising hub for biotechnology companies globally. We also introduced a framework allowing, very recently, this is last year, allowing what we call specialist technology companies to list on our exchange. And specialist technology is a very broad term covering basically the most cutting edge technologies that we're seeing emerging around the world, including artificial intelligence, new materials, new energy, etc. Again, we want to provide the environment whereby these companies can tap the public market at the cups of commercialization, which for us is both attractive to the companies involved as well as to investors, because you don't want investors to, do want to be able to invest in those stocks before that hockey stick goes up, when they manage to commercialize.
And Bonnie, let me, excuse me, just interrupt a little bit. I believe Anand has to step off early to greet your president. So, so we will continue the panel. I'll see you later. But Bonnie was talking about the role of capital in driving innovation, and I believe that your company, from pulp, from telecoms to to your original energy as well. You're also venturing into the banking sector as well. What are you hoping to do with that money?
Well, obviously, I will refer basically to the two companies where I am the vice chairman of the board of, which is the power generation company called Huang and the pulp and paper company, CMPC, which has operations in 9 countries of Latin America. And in terms of investment, obviously we have very important investment plans as our products. Let's talk about the products made of our natural fiber of our certificated forestry land. We have 1.2 million hectares in Chile and Brazil, 100% certificate, and the natural fiber of that wood is basically used to produce products which are now replacing high emission products. For packaging, let's say we're replacing plastic based on paper products. We are replacing construction materials which are high emission with wood. Pulp is basically supplying many other applications that are really at the core of the global challenges to achieve carbon neutrality. So obviously there is a huge opportunity for pulp and paper in the world because it's based on natural fibers and low emission products. So that's in pulp and paper. And then in energy, well, obviously that's obvious. We need more renewable energy. I talk about the data centers, the amount of energy they require. So all the forecasts are very aggressive in terms of the electricity demand growth. So obviously we are investing in that. We are investing in solar power, wind power, storage. And even though we're not directly investing in let's say, digital industries, all of these new investments, both in pulp and paper and energy, has digital at the core, So, for instance, when you think about the ecosystem that is required to build a data center, you need desalinated water, you need power, you need transmission lines. So all that ecosystem, which is obviously physical, enables a really important infrastructure for the digitalization of the world, which is a data center. So at the end, I don't like to separate digital technologies to physical infrastructure. At the end, the real thing happens in the intersection between physical infrastructure and digital, and that's where we're in, where we produce infrastructure, resources, and products that basically are required for many global challenges, including digitalization.
And you mentioned a whole host of things that need to change and evolve to facilitate this green transformation. And I wonder, Martin, education is obviously a huge part in this formula. And your company works actively in upskilling communities, preparing them for the digital future, especially in underserved communities. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's so important to making the technology ultimately successful. So what we find with our customers, those who are most successful, those who achieve their objectives, really have 4 elements. They have a willingness to invest. Obviously, most things take investment. They have the skills that are necessary. They have good frameworks, but most importantly, they collaborate well. And when we worked with a government to help them build a universal payments interface and a universal loan interface, we knew that measuring the technology, the success of the technology, would be fairly straightforward. So in the case of the universal loan interface, which reaches farmers in villages, we took the lead time to complete a loan from 2 months to 2 hours. So we knew we could successfully measure the technology and its success. More importantly, however, we also worked with a ministry in the government to create an education program because we have the cybersecurity skills. We created an education program, so not only is it processing over 1 billion loans already, and not only is it running the universal payments interface, we are in the process of training about 100,000 villagers in this country to help them understand the risks of cybersecurity and how to protect themselves, so that while, again, it's easy to measure, it's good to have frameworks around how you make an investment and how do you measure whether the technology is working. To your point, and you said it well, the ability to collaborate, to bring skills to those who are using it is critical, or it doesn't necessarily work. So public-private partnerships and the ability to collaborate, absolutely vital if we collectively are going to reach new parts of the world that isn't reached so well yet, if we're going to narrow the digital divide. Pick your metaphor for this, but public-private partnerships in order to educate and bring insights to those who are not well reached or not easily reached or haven't been reached, absolutely critical for the technology to be successful.
And you brought up a very, very important topic, public-private partnership. I believe during his speech, President Xi Jinping, said that China will build a dozen training centers for countries in the BRICS, I guess, in the BRICS group. That was what he said in Russia a few weeks ago. And China, obviously, Chinese companies are very big on upskilling as well. Huawei, for instance, has lots of initiatives on that. Bonnie, what do you know about training and educational opportunities that perhaps are available in this area?
Well, what Martin just said struck a chord in me, which is, we need to make sure that, as we progress with this technology advancement, we don't leave people behind, right? I mean, the digital divide, so to speak. And because of the pace of technology advancement, it's very easy if we don't sort of think through how to democratize this whole thing. You'll have, the have and have-nots really at two ends, and it will give rise to a lot of social problems. And I think when you said education, my belief is, hopefully the capital markets can help, right? I mean, and as I said earlier, this is an exchange is a place where capital should meet opportunities. And we shouldn't say, right, that the exchange should only be at the service of those who are empowered by technology and then leave behind those who don't. But it's a very real issue. I mean, if you think about how people invest these days, okay, so maybe I should take a poll. How many people in the audience invest in the stock market? Raise your hand. Okay, a lot of hands. Now, they will remember, and I see people from different generations, right? From the older generations, how did you used to invest in the stock market? You call up your broker, right? You ask your broker to give you some tips. You don't have access through the internet to find information, okay? But, you will listen to commentators, and your decision to pick stock probably will take some time to form based on research, based on speaking to people, et cetera, et cetera. And once you bought a stock, you tend to hold it. You're long-term investors. And it's investment. Nowadays, the investment in securities has been so much gamified that no one has the patience to do all that I just mentioned. You probably now invest through an app on your phone, right? You have ways to even buy very exotic products. You don't talk to a broker. You probably, will rely on information that you have very quick access through the internet. And more. And by the way, if you have money, you don't even just invest in stocks. You buy cryptocurrency, a lot of different other types of virtual assets. And so you can see how things are evolving. And so when, I think we think about the topic of education, to me, it is really, what we can do to make sure that we do not continuously see the polarization of these two groups, the have and have-nots. I don't think I have an answer for that, but we're very conscious that hopefully as we build and develop our platform, we address the needs of not just the haves.
And I believe we are about out of time. Just one quick line before we finish. If we could give one recommendation for policy leaders from APEC, what would it be?
Well, I think we've been talking about the business and the growth and development and investment. Maybe I would move to democracy, its institutions, and the quality of the political process. And I would, if I have to give one advice to the leaders, many times technology is seen as a threat to democracies and institutions. And I think technology can also be a big opportunity to strengthen democracies and its institutions. Because the big challenge, I think, that democracies have is that we have to basically increase the broadband of democracy and increase the latency of democracy, meaning we have to interact with people, so democratic institutions have to interact with people more frequently. Yeah. And technology can be a big enabler of that. And at the end, the quality of the political process, the quality of political institutions, is not a subject only of interest to politics. It's at the heart of the economical challenges, social challenges, because at the end, new laws, new policies, they go through the political process. And it's very important for people to trust institutions, and technology could be an enabler for more people to participate in the political process and to strengthen liberal democracies. I am a big supporter of liberal democracies, and I think APEC, it's a lot of countries basically have liberal democracies, and a big challenge is to strengthen it, to have a better participation of citizens, and technology could be an enabler of that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm seeing a big red flashing countdown that we're out of time. So thank you very much for attending this session. This discussion really offers hope, I think, that with smart and responsible investments, we can really create a lot of amazing opportunities to drive innovation, to drive sustainability, and make this world, to make the global economy a more inclusive economy. So with that, that's the end of today's session. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.